What is the future of packaging? Sponsored by the YourEncore packaging practice. Well, who better to facilitate this conversation than our friend Brad Barron? He has lived all over the world. He has designed packages for all over the world, and he spent 25 of those years at Procter & Gamble. He's now working with YourEncore and their packaging practice. Welcome, Brad.
Hey, welcome.
So this theme, number 2, is what is sustainable packaging and how can it drive business growth? Tell us about this knowledge stream.
This theme is obviously, from the title, about sustainability. This is a huge topic right now. You see it in the media, you see it in the press. People are concerned about waste and plastics in the ocean and polluting the environment. Many companies look at this as something that they need to manage. Instead, it's actually something that can drive their business forward. And so what this knowledge stream looks at is how can companies leverage sustainability to actually grow their business instead of it just being something that they need to deal with.
Great. So who sat on this panel?
One of the great things about this panel is the diversity we have. We've got a decent group of people here that span everywhere from packaging technologists to marketing experts to designers to people that work in packaging industries outside of consumer goods packaging, more in the industrial side of things. We've also got people spread around the world. So we have people from Asia, Europe, and the U.S. So a really great diverse point of view coming.
Yeah, really cool. Now, in your executive summary, you talk about the trade-off with the consumers. Explain this.
So one of the things that companies sometimes do is they look at sustainability and they say, I want to make my package greener. And to do that, the consumer has to accept a sacrifice. Maybe it's a little bit harder to open, doesn't look as pretty, and so forth. And the basic conclusion from this is that that's not the way to go. We really need to take on the challenge of making our packages sustainable and delightful at the same time. We really need to have both. Some of the key things that we learned from this panel, and I've also seen in my career, is you don't design a package and then ask yourself how to make it sustainable. Instead of that, from day one, you should be asking yourself that question. Once again, how do I make this package awesome and make it sustainable? And if you do that from the beginning, you can usually succeed there. We also, had numerous examples that came up. There are so many opportunities to do that, right? Once again, to have both delight and sustainability. So if we just look for them with that mindset that they're out there, we can find them. There's absolutely no question about that. And then, the last thing that really came out strong in this panel as we looked at examples is you got to be bold. So when companies are bold and they take big steps that challenge the norm, they get great innovation, great response, and they do a lot of good from a sustainability point of view.
Now, in key point number 1, you talk about the right and the wrong way to design sustainability. And I love Javier's sharing his story of his work with Tesla, right?
Absolutely. So Javier sums it up, right? So when he works with Tesla, and when Tesla had designed the car, they didn't say, let's design the best electric car, because that would have appealed to people that want to buy electric cars, which is not that many. Instead, they said, let's design the best car possible. Let's design an awesome car. And by the way, it's going to be electric. Okay, so that is the mindset that when people take that to packaging, we win. When people say, let me design this package that's absolutely fantastic and build the sustainability in. Sometimes, you might use that sustainability in a message if your product is focused on green consumers. Sometimes it might just be there in the background, right? But that's definitely the way to win. The way to not win is what Michael talks about,
right.
Is you say, okay, to be sustainable, I have to take this sacrifice. You know what, to be honest, what I've seen from the examples in this panel, the examples in my career, when you accept a trade-off, you just haven't worked hard enough. If you keep working and you keep pushing against it, you can find those golden opportunities where you have the intersection of delight and sustainability.
And key point number 2, you talk about the need to make a true breakthrough and to sort of make sure that that's even possible, right? By making the right approach, like they were talking about with Tesla.
Yeah, exactly. So, some companies look at sustainability incrementally. Can I make my bottle weigh a little bit less? Can I put a little bit more recycled content in? But if you look at the big steps that have happened, they've really been fundamental. They've really driven transformative change. This first example from Alexander is a great one, which is soft drinks. So, people that are older, like myself, remember when the tab, you used to pull it off and then you'd throw it away. Well, that bit of aluminum was not recycled. Now, every soft drink can has that top that you just kind of flex and it opens it up, but everything stays there on the can. So imagine the billions of soft drink cans that are used worldwide. When you take that little tab, it adds up to tons and tons and tons of aluminum that gets recycled today. And as consumers, I think we all like those kind of tops better, right?
Yeah, you don't have to look for a place to throw that darn thing away when you take it off, right? Or drop it down inside and worry you're going to swallow it, right?
Exactly. So, so just like we saw in the cost innovation theme before this, the companies that take those bold steps, they really drive pretty big changes. I mean, imagine being the first soft drink manufacturer that said, I'm going to change my design so that the pull tab doesn't have to be discarded. I'm sure they were ridiculed, right, by their peers. People
Right.
said it's too much of an investment, it's too complicated. Well, now it's taken over the world.
Well, and based on what Christine had to say here, I officially give everyone the permission to go out and buy a nice bottle of Veuve Clicquot champagne so that they can fully appreciate what she's trying to say here. So,
Exactly. So Veuve Clicquot is, I love this example because you don't think necessarily of Veuve Clicquot as a sustainability or green focused brand. But, what they've done, and there's a lot of information on their website about this, they actually take the waste from their process to make champagne. So that's the grape pulp and so forth. And they turn that into boxes that they then pack their champagne in. So, it's a fantastic example of a brand doing some pretty amazing work from a sustainability point of view and taking something that used to be waste for them and, turning that into the package. So, we don't normally think about luxury brands as being sustainable. We think about green-focused brands, but, there's opportunities for everybody out there.
it's a good point. Now, key point number 3, you talk about one solution might not be the right for every country or everything, right?
Yeah. A common pitfall that many companies fall into is, they might get a rule of thumb that then creates their sustainability program. They may say, our sustainability program is about driving weight reduction, for example. Well, this first example from Francisco really brings this to point. Glass packaging is heavy, right? So that's not going to drive weight reduction. But if your business is in Europe, where most glass bottles are collected, returned, washed, and reused, it's a fantastic option. If you live in a market where glass is not recycled, which does happen many places in the world because of the low value of glass, well, then it's a terrible option. So you really need to look at the geography that you're in, the location, the business context to decide the right path forward.
So key point 4, it's an end-sum game, right? This is about totality.
Correct. When totality, this is, it's another pitfall and also another opportunity. The pitfall is that if you only think about your packaging metrics, recycled content, weight, source of origin, and so forth, you miss out. You need to think about the total thing that the consumer buys, which includes product. Great example here is in the foods industry. So the foods industry quite often uses multi-material films for flexible packaging or wraps that are not recyclable in most parts of the world. However, they do an amazing job of protecting the food from being spoiled. And so, despite the fact that you're using a film that's not recyclable, your amount of food waste from spoilage goes way down. And on top of that, the film is pretty lightweight. So you end up with something that's a really strong win for sustainability versus other types of packaging. If you don't take the big picture and you don't look holistically at all the different metrics that you could see, you'll miss out on those opportunities.
And I guess that brings us to key point number 5, right? Which is for some people, sustainability can be a confusing arena.
Exactly. This is something that I see again and again from a business and from a consumer side. So from a business side, I think it's important for companies to look at what are all the different ways sustainability or sustainable packaging can drive business growth. So for green-focused companies and product lines, it's pretty simple. If your package is more sustainable, your consumers will love you more, and they'll buy you more. They'll choose you more often. However, for other ones, it might not be a direct selling point for the product. So for example, back to Veuve Clicquot, people don't think of them as a sustainability focused brand when they make that product choice. However, it helps to drive the general awareness of the brand as a positive brand that consumers want to choose. With trade partners, many trade partners give preferable terms to companies that have more sustainable packaging. So once again, it doesn't necessarily translate back to a direct lift in volume that you would get in some kind of consumer test, but it definitely leads to business success. Because if you got more display and more promotion, your business is going to grow, without a doubt.
So let's talk about the three that gave you the most help on your top three experts here from the panel.
So Mary, Francisco, and Colin, what I really love about these guys, one is their contributions were wonderful. Very engaged throughout the panel, many posts with great positive builds on everybody's idea. The other thing, they're coming from very different backgrounds, right? So, Mary's mainly a marketing background. Francisco is a technical packaging R&D person. And Colin's a designer. So when you take all these different points of view that are frankly needed to create winning packages, you really get a 360-degree view of the problem, and you get some wonderful creative solutions. So these guys are really great.
And what can we look for in your next theme, Brad?
So the next theme that we're working on now, the first theme was about how can companies save money on packaging without losing delight. This one was about sustainability. And the next theme is about how can companies drive their business even further by investing in packaging. Not think of it as something that you just need to minimize the cost, but think of something that you really want to invest to drive maximum delight. So there's going to be some great things coming out of that. We've had good conversations to date, and that'll be the next video in the series.
Well done, Brad. Thank you.
Excellent.
Brad Barron is the packaging master. He's lived all over the world. He's designed packages for all over the world. And he spent 25 years at Procter & Gamble. He's now working with YourEncore and their packaging practice. We'll talk to you soon, Brad.
All right. Thanks very much.